The Dyna Lowrider S, the best Dyna ever made. Let's talk about it. All right, what's going on YouTube? FXDLS Brooklyn is back in the building. And this one is in response to a common question I've been getting throughout probably the last 2 years. You know, people seeing me rip around on my FXDX, people seeing me rip around on my Dyna Lowrider S. Since you know the two common Dynas that you hear are the best is always a 2000 to 2002 FXDX or a Dyna Lowrider S. The quickest answer that I can give you about why off the bat I think the Dyna Lowrider S is going to be better than an FXDX is the Dyna wobble. People are going to argue with me about this, but I've put in heavy miles on three very different makes and models of Dyna, which is a 2001 FXDX, a 2006 FXDBI, and of course a 2016 Dyna Lowrider S. Three very different years and models of Dynas. The only one of those Dynas that never gave me the Dyna wobble, especially in high speed curves, is this bike. And I'm not just saying that with upgraded suspension and upgraded motor mounts, which is what I have. I'm talking about stock. When I took this bike out of the showroom, even when it ran stock suspension in the front and rear, it never gave me the Dyna wobble. Not once, not from the first day when everything was stock, all the way until today. What are we talking, like 7 years later, with the transformation that's coming, I've never gotten the Dyna wobble on this bike. And I think that's maybe the #1 reason for me why I'm gonna go and say hands down the Dyna Lowrider S is the best Dyna ever made, is because again, this is the only Dyna I've ever ridden that's never given me the Dyna wobble, and that was stock, right? So that's like the first #1 reason why I'm gonna make the argument why this was the best Dyna ever made is that's it, man. Like you should not have to be making adjustments to the bike. You shouldn't be having to run stabilizers and upgrade motor mounts to have your bike not do a Dyna death wobble, which, you know, I think almost all of y'all who are riding Dynas have probably experienced that. It ain't fun. So that's the #1 reason, right? I think the #2 reason, and like again, this is going back to 2016. You know, I was in the market for a new bike at that time, and I was so close in 2015 to buying a 2015 Street Bob, and then this thing was announced. And going back there, why I'm going to make the argument that this was the best one ever made stock is #1, it came with a 110, which was a huge motor at the time. I think that was comparable with the CVOs, which also had 110s at that time. So it had that 110 in it. The suspension was solid. Like I said, I never got the Dyna wobble. I ran that stock suspension for like 2 years. I rode cross country and back. I had no problem with that stock suspension. So the suspension was great. It had cruise control, right? Everything was blacked out, which was something that people were laying down thousands to do their bikes. And finally, the cost, man. Like when I bought this bike was coming in under 17 new, which, you know, allowed me at the time to be able to afford this bike. And as you can see, I still have it till this day. So those are like the biggest factors that I think make this the best Dyna ever made. And now, you know, going into 2023, it's crazy because I'm seeing like heavy mile Dyna Lowrider S's like this one, not just selling for what they were at the showroom back in 2016, 2017, but are actually going up in value because I think the fact that this bike was only made for a year and a half has like added to the coolness factor and has added to the exclusivity factor that again, this was a model that again was only made for a year and a half. So again, putting heavy miles on 3 very different Dynas, again, I've thought about it a lot. I'm trying to give y'all an answer who are in the market for a new Dyna. This is hands down the best Dyna I've ever ridden. And again, that's like talking about its stock as well. So the hype around the Lowrider S is real. You guys know it's like the bread and butter of my channel. I've done everything on this bike. I've gone cross country. I've done international road trips on this bike. It's allowed me to really ride the way I wanted to ride without sacrificing performance. And again, this was way before, this is many years before anyone even thought about a Lowrider ST, which again, you guys know, like Lowrider ST and like what that bike does stock, you guys have heard me talk about it a bunch of times. That's just like a separate video. But again, this is more just those of you out there who like, you know, you want a Dyna, you do not want to go the M8 route and are asking me that question of either FXDX versus FXDLS, which is better. Again, I could easily say that the Dyna Lowrider S is going to hands down be the best Dyna that was ever made. So like I said before, if you're looking to do different types of riding, like again, my favorite type of riding for my FXDX is if I'm not doing heavy mile days, like around here, like city riding is where I enjoy my FXDX the most. But jack of all trades, any situation, I'm always the happiest on my Lowrider S. The closest bike I've ever come to riding, the closest Dyna I've ever come to riding that even comes close to the performance of the modern Lowrider S or the modern Lowrider ST is my Dyna Lowrider S. And again, that's with upgraded suspension front and rear. That is with upgraded motor mounts front and rear. And that, again, this is the only Dyna that comes anywhere as close as the handling and the smoothness of the Lowrider ST. So again, because of the timing of when this bike was made, it was all the way at the end of the Dyna line. Like, they killed the Dyna line in 2017. So you got to think about it. They spent all the years sharpening the iron, sharpening the sword, sharpening the sword, sharpening the sword, until eventually in 2017, right before they killed the line, this was what we got. And again, in my opinion, this is the sharpest sword out of the Dyna line. And again, that was years of innovation. That was years of making the models better and better and better, until finally you get you get what I believe is the most refined Dyna that they made before, again, they killed the entire line. It's also got that like nostalgic factor around it, where again, it is in many ways the last Dyna, right? So in my opinion, and that's again from having heavy miles on a span of different Dynas, it's just very clear that they had refined the Dyna into this. It's just very clear that with the Dyna Lowrider S, they had done their research, they had finally refined the Dyna into something that was like this. And again, it's the only one that never gave me the Dyna wobble. So like, that's the biggest one, and it speaks for itself when you ride it. So it's interesting because again, I feel like if you're, you know, the last thing I'll say about this is, like, if you're somebody that has test ridden the new Milwaukee 8s, the new Milwaukee 8 Lowrider S, everyone knows, like, you're just not going to beat modern performance. Like, it is what it is. I mean, you could come close to it like I did, but you're going to be laying down some serious money to come close to what those bikes do stock, right? So I would say, you know, if you're someone where you've test ridden the Milwaukee 8 Dyna Lowrider S or the ST, but you want that rowdiness of a twin cam, you want the rowdiness of a Dyna, you want the character of a Dyna, which, you know, no Milwaukee 8 is ever going to be able to replace. Like, we all know that, right? But you still want something that's close to modern performance and modern handling and the smoothness that's going to come with those new Milwaukee 8s. I would tell you to go look for a Dyna Lowrider S if you could find them. Me personally, I got a bunch of friends that have this year and model, and I only know one of them that's ever sold the bike. I think everyone that's got their Dyna Lowrider S's at this point is going to be holding on to them. You know, this is, for me, this is my heritage bike. Like, this is where I put, even though I have a Lowrider SD, this is still the bike I put most of my miles on. This, you know, I got the Soul Link with this bike. I got almost 60K on this bike. You know, this is just the one I'm never going to be able to let go, even if this is just the one I'm never going to be able to let go, for all the reasons why I just put. So again, I'm gonna hands down say that if you are going fast, if you are going far, if you're doing sport touring, if you're doing the bike trips, this is the best Dyna ever made, you know? So if you're looking for them, you know, they're still out there, albeit they're getting harder to find, they're going up in cost. So that's kind of where I would leave it. But you all let me know in the comment section. I know a lot of you are running early 2000s Superglide Sports, Superglides, etc. A lot of you are also running Dyna Lowrider S's, right? So you all let me know in the comment section, like, what do you think is the best Dyna ever made? That's my opinion on it. I do think that the Dyna Lowrider S should go down in history as being the most refined, the Hattori Hanzo sword of Dynas. It's not going to get more refined than this before they killed the line. That's how I feel about it. As always, whether you are on a early 2000 Dyna, a mid 2000 Dyna, or a late 2016, 2017 Dyna Lowrider S, stay safe out there and stay low. Practice a positive mental attitude. It's not what you ride, it's that you do ride. And now that, FXDLS Brooklyn is out.